Welcome, everybody. Excited everybody is here today. Thank you all for being a part of our vision and helping us to create a tribe dedicated to living intentional life. That is the mission of Health Together. And so Health Together was really created last March or April when I decided that we needed a better way to start engaging our practice members in healthy activities that got them out, got them engaged. And so as I was considering the things that I thought we could do, I kept thinking of events and fun things we could do, like trail hikes and the purification. And so Health Together was the brainchild of the team, and really came about because of the core values that we defined for Health Together. The core values are authentic relationships, community, adventure, and involvement. And so each one of our events we try to incorporate all of those different aspects into. And so to pre-frame this for you, what I want you to think about today is how many people showed up here for the beer? One. All right, good. So I definitely wanted to make sure there was at least a couple of honest people here today. So, how many people showed up when you heard resolutions together? You thought resolutions, changing, making a change, difference in my life. How many people thought that I need to go because I need to change something in my life? Good. So, I got to tell you, my brain's kind of scattered and all over the place right now. This specific event, Resolutions Together, was kind of an expansion of an old module we used in the office called From Resolution to Revolution. And so we would do this throughout the year, and we do it in companies. And really, the idea was, how do we take this idea of making a resolution, and then what happens to most people's resolution over time? It fails, right? If you're looking to start going to the gym, I don't recommend January, right? You'll be there twice as long as you will be in February, because that's when everything falls off, right? So the idea was to take it from just having this one idea, a resolution, and making it a revolution in your life. And so a lot of the principles of the ideas of how to do that came from a process that Katie and I went through in 2008 called Lifebook. And in that, it really developed the understanding of how to develop a belief system that is going to create massive action in your life that is going to get you the results that you want. Because so many of our resolutions are to do, right? To do this thing to get this result. And we keep working at it, and we try, and we may or may not have the right resources at the time, but the thing that we're failing to work on is who we are. Because it's our beliefs that create those actions, and it's our actions that create the results. So if you want to get to the foundation of how to create momentum and improvement in your life and long-lasting change, what you first have to really work on is the belief part of that. And so this Lifebook process calls that your premise. And so, like I said, a lot of these concepts came from Lifebook, and so we were excited about that, and went through that process, and really saw a lot of change. And as we were out of town over the the holiday period, I got an email that said that Lifebook has changed formats. It used to be an event that you would attend in Chicago, a 4-day event, intensive 10-hour days, where you would develop these concepts, and you would leave with your Lifebook, your vision in a lot of different categories. And so I got this email while we were on vacation, and it said that it's changed formats. It's now an online program, and through that time, Katie and I decided to do it. And so the cool thing is that just started yesterday, and so we just started that process and kind of got me re-engaged in this idea. So if it seems like I've got 30 different ideas at one time and I'm kind of scattered, it's because I've done this module 20 or 30 times, but I'm back in the Lifebook now where this all started. So I apologize if it's a little more disjointed than it had been in the past. So, all right. So this concepts of resolutions. What are typical New Year's resolutions?
Lose weight.
Lose weight. Quit smoking.
Eat healthier.
Eat healthier. Save money. Work out. Exercise. Less stress. Be nicer. Get organized. See, I like all these. And what I love about Lifebook is that we'll talk about core values in a minute, but one of my core values is simplicity. And Lifebook simplistically put these into 10 categories. And these 10 categories they qualify are health and fitness, intellectual life, emotional life, character, spiritual life, love relationship, parenting, social life, financial life, and career. I find that most goals that people set are going to be in one of those categories of life. And so as we move forward, I would challenge that our health and fitness is the most important of any of those categories, because without those things, you can't achieve it. Without health and fitness, you can't achieve any of the other ones, right? When you lose your health, especially to a significant degree, you will do everything in your power to try to regain that. You will give up all your progress and your commitment in the other areas to try to get back your health and fitness. So today, as I give you examples, it's going to be all in the health and fitness realm, and I encourage you to build that one out as we go through this process. But I'm also going to ask that as we go forward, that you utilize the worksheet that's in front of you. The worksheet looks like this. Everybody has one at their seat. It's got your name on top. It says step 1. On the back of this sheet, write 1 or 2 goals in each of the 10 life categories. Now, again, that's going to be something that I want you to do later. What I'm asking you to do now is to choose one other category besides health and fitness and write down 1 or 2 goals in that category. So we talked about what the typical New Year's resolutions are. We talked about the fact that we can categorize them into specific categories. My next question is, why do resolutions fail? And when I say this again, I'm going to, as we start to talk about the different reasons, I believe that there are some very specific overriding reasons and specific umbrella reasons that our resolutions fail over time. So what are the common reasons that our resolutions fail?
You don't think it out.
I'm sorry?
You don't think it out.
You don't think it out, like lack of preparation. Absolutely.
You don't see the results you want.
You don't get the results you want, right? So we don't get the results, so we stop because we're not seeing results. Yeah.
Addressing old habits.
Say again.
Old habits.
Old habits, right? So we don't replace the old habits with the new habits, or those old habits are working against us. Yep. It's too hard, right? We don't have a strategy that is simple enough that we see the results in.
The goals aren't specific.
The goals aren't specific, right? So we say that we want to lose weight, right? Well, how much weight? 1 pound, 20 pounds, right? And we want to save money. Well, how much money? What else?
Can have the right support for the right, resources.
Yeah, the right support or resources. Yep.
Not willing to pay all the prices.
Not willing to pay the price, right? The self-discipline. Yeah, absolutely. So I believe that there are some pretty specific, again, general categories of reasons that we don't see our resolutions through. One, it's a belief system issue, right? We either didn't consider all of the factors and we approached it with the wrong premise. We fall off track because there's a motivation issue. We choose short-term pleasure versus long-term gain, which is an issue with our personal values. Incongruent actions, right? So what we were doing was never going to get us there because we weren't doing what it took to get there. So we had incongruent actions because either we didn't have enough information or the right information, or we had incongruent actions because it wasn't valuable enough to us. So that's a values issue. And so really what I think the core pieces to establish in your life in order to make long-lasting change is to address your belief systems, understand your core values, understand the strengths that you have in your life and how to leverage those things, and then create the biggest why you can, to have a strong purpose behind it. We're going to talk about all of those things as well, because all of those things are going to support your strategy or work against it. Obviously, the last thing that I didn't mention there is having the appropriate game plan, right? Making sure that the actions that you're taking align with the truth and reality of the situation. So doing some research and understanding what it takes to get there. And we'll talk about that as well as we go. So really what we're going to talk about first is beliefs and belief system. And so John Butcher, the founder of Lifebook, defines a premise as a foundational belief upon which all other beliefs are founded. Right? And so a belief system is all the beliefs that you have. The foundational beliefs are those core beliefs upon which all the other beliefs are founded. And so when it comes to our beliefs, I love this quote by Ayn Rand. And it really gets down to the heart of the fact that most of us just kind of float through life, never really challenging into the beliefs that we have. And where do we get most of our belief system? Parents. Friends. Schools, yeah. So I like to say mothers, fathers, teachers, preachers, and now media, right? And media is literally buying space in your brain to help create belief systems, right? And so unless we are very specific and very committed to challenge those beliefs and understanding those core beliefs, it's likely that we've got some false beliefs floating around in there. And it's those false beliefs that are going to really self-sabotage us and not allow us to get where we want to get. And it's funny because, beliefs are kind of like the story that you tell yourself in the back of your mind. Right? So those of you who are in a long-term relationship know the moment that your partner starts to tell a story, you know all the words that are about to come out after that. Right? You know the exact words that they use. Think about that. That is the story that they've told themselves about that event, and it could be accurate or inaccurate. But the same thing happens for all of the big decisions that you've made in your life. You have a story about that. And the words that you use, hold the key to your emotion around that. And so it's important to have strong, powerful, and more important, accurate beliefs about these things. So what we're going to do now, so I love this because she really talks about, philosophy being a set of, or a foundational way to understand your thinking. So she says, you have no choice about the fact that you need a philosophy. Your only choice is whether you define your philosophy by a conscious, rational, disciplined process of thought and scrupulously logical deliberation, or let your subconscious accumulate a junk heap of unwarranted conclusions, false generalizations, undefined contradictions, undigested slogans, unidentified wishes, doubts, and fears, thrown together by chance, but integrated by your subconscious into a kind of mongrel philosophy, and fused into a single solid weight, self-doubt, like a ball and chain in the place where your mind's wings should have grown. Right? This is most of us in at least some area of our life, that we've never really thought about why we think a certain way or why we have a specific belief. And so I challenge you to find quotes like this that remind you to challenge the norm, to challenge the cultural norm and say, is this what I believe? Is this what I want in my life? And so when it comes to health and fitness, what I'm asking you to do is to write down a couple of beliefs that you have about health and fitness on the back of your sheet. And so I believe that there's some things that can, help get the juices flowing, so to speak. So I'm going to tell you my top 3 health and fitness premises. Number 1, there's nothing in life more important than my physical health. 2, my body is self-healing and self-regulating. And 3, I am in control of my physical destiny. All of those are foundational beliefs. Now, upon that, I have other beliefs like the success of all other categories depends on my success in this category. My number 1 core value is faith, and even that cannot be fully recognized without my health. I can only fully serve God and His people when I am well enough to go out and serve and be the example. Right? So I have foundational beliefs, and then I have a lot of other ones upon which that. So I just write down whatever you believe about health and fitness.
What I think my life is currently producing, or what I would like to create.
So she asked, the beliefs that she's writing, are they the beliefs that are producing the current life that she currently has, or the ones that she would like to have? And what I would say is, to identify all your beliefs is important. Even the ones that might be taking you in the wrong direction, it's important to understand that belief. That way you can go back and modify it and replace it with an accurate belief. Right? Because we can believe untrue things. Right? And so the question is this belief serving me? Is it guiding me in the direction that I need to go to gain the goal, right? Because the end game of all of this is to achieve something. And so if the belief that we have about that is not producing the results we have, we got to go back and check our premise. So I would say I write them all down, and this would be a really good exercise later, and then go back and find the ones that are self-limiting, and then identify those and rewrite them in truth or maybe a different idea. And again, your truth and your premises, your beliefs will change over time, right? And so to come back and continually work with these will be important.
Well, one thing that Cole told me before was, write it even in like future tense, like what you wish you believed or what you wish were true for you. Identifying that it's not necessarily true for you today, but what you want that to be true for you in the future, and then reflecting on that can help you in that direction.
Yeah. Especially when it comes to doing things like affirmations, right? Writing it as if it already exists, right, is important as well. That'll be a strategy we talk about later. So just to give you another example of this, because as I was sitting down to start this process again with Lifebook, it was nice to have some ideas and hear some other people's beliefs. And again, truths are truth. right? Truths exist, whether we believe them or not. And so to hear some of those things and hear specific beliefs, identified with, and even though they weren't my words, some of my attached to and said, yes, that is a powerful belief that aligns with who I am, that I believe. Just because it didn't come up with the words doesn't make it any less valuable. So in another category, let's say it was love relationship. So this is a mix of things that may or may not be beliefs that you have and may or may not be true specific to anybody. So here's some beliefs somebody might have. I believe that a healthy relationship is based on give and take. Or I believe a healthy relationship requires sacrifice. Or I believe there is one right person out there for me. Or I believe that relationships should be easy. Or I believe that a healthy relationship takes a lot of work, right? So, depending on what your second category was that you wrote down on the back, again, I was just hoping to give you some other ideas of just how to simply write out some beliefs and get that out on paper. All right. So next thing we're going to do is talk about core values. Who here has ever gone through an exercise of identifying your core values? All right, good. Several people. Very good. So this will be an opportunity that you have to refine that and make sure that it's something that still holds true today. If you're like me and our team at the office, you'll find that this is something that we talk about pretty much every single day, our core values. And the cool thing is that it's our core values that are the principles about ourselves that are running in the background all the time. And in a minute, I'll teach you how to do that, but before that, what I'll ask you to do is think about how you make decisions. Right? Think about the things that you desire in life. Think about the emotions that you have and what drives those, and really what's created the biggest changes in your life, and what was the emotion and thought process behind that? What were the values that drove that? Because values are the most important driving force that we have, and most people have never consciously considered those. And so this is going to be something that ideally, we start this process, now you start to identify, but you go back and refine and refine. I'm going to ask you to, with this process, identify your top, I think on the worksheet I said 5 to 6, 3 to 6. And so I started with 5, I'm now up to 8 core values because I continue to see different layers of my own personality. So here's how this works. You got a sheet in front of you. The sheet has all these words on it. Now these words may or may not encompass all the things that could be your beliefs. In fact, your values, 2 of my values aren't on this sheet. But this sheet helped me get to my core values. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to read down through the list in your head, kind of quickly, each one, and allow your mind to say it. So achievement, advancement and promotion, adventure, affection. One of those that either is a value that you desire in your life or is one that kind of stirs something in you, I want you to circle it. And when you're done, you put an X by it. And so when you're done, you'll have a sheet that has a ton of X's by it. And that's okay. Don't question, is that really it or not? Is that important to me? If it stirs something in you, put an X by it. So I'll give you a minute or 2 to go through that process right now. All right, part 2. Part 2, what you're going to do is we're going to reread through the list, but only the ones that you put the X by. And you're going to consider those big life-changing moments in life, the big decisions you had to make, the emotional stories that you have about yourself, and go back and decide which one of those values, or which of those values, are the driving forces that you've experienced, or which ones do you want to be the driving forces, which ones do you value the most. And you're going to circle somewhere between 3 to 6. So at the end, you should have 3 to 6 of them circled. Now, like I said, this isn't the final draft you're going to have, but this is how you're going to consider what things are important in your life. So, as I said, these core values are the driving force in your life. They're the reasons that you choose, the choices that you make each day. And when you start to understand them, and you start to define them, and you figure out the ones that are most important to you, and you start making decisions based on values, you find a lot more joy in your life. Most of us are, chasing things and making decisions based on what everybody else wants in our life or what media tells us that we should want. And when we achieve those things, if it's not fulfilling, it's likely because it really wasn't a core value to you. And so what's really cool is that as I continue to work through this, and this is a process that I went through almost 10 years ago, it's something that I literally think about every day. And has allowed me to communicate better with my spouse, with my team members, to make sure that they understand where all this is coming from. So my top 7 core values are faith, truth, efficiency, simplicity, excellence, aesthetics, and precision. And what's funny is that as I became sole owner of Lakeshore Chiropractic last year, and I was training Kayla and Kelsey more and more, I realized that there was something that was so important in my life that had always been running in the background, that when I conveyed it to them, they understood the reason that I trained and the reason we worked and did trainings together the same way. That it's because precision is so important. And precision is important to me because truth is a core value. So the step 4 that you're going to do, not here but at home, is to write down a sentence describing how that defines your character and what it means to you. And so in the email that we'll send out tomorrow, it'll have the examples of my sentences here, again, just to get the creative juices flowing. But I'll read a couple of them to you just so you can understand where we're at with that. So faith is important to me. I put nothing before my relationship with God and the beauty of His creation. As an analytical, my tendency is to look for proof and evidence for all things. However, there are things in this world that simply must be accepted by faith. Truth is my number 2 core value, and it says, I find very little in this world more important than truth. It qualifies the exact nature and reality of our existence. Efficiency. Time is a non-renewable resource, which we all try and conserve. And as such, I not only seek, but revel in efficiency and completion of not only arduous, but mundane tasks alike. So again, these are the things that I've thought about over time, and when I look back at why I choose to do the things that I do, it's either truth is so important. I try to find, I research and I try to find the exact way to do something because precision and truth is so important to me. I also try to find the most efficient way to do it. And I used to be a self-proclaimed perfectionist, but I find out that was self-defeating, and so excellence was more important. And so, again, these are core values in my life, and I continue to come to them over and over again. I encourage you to find that as well, because it is in the intersection of core values and beliefs where willpower, desire, and drive comes from. And so as we move forward, what I'm going to ask you to do is allow your belief system, your core values, and your purpose and vision, right? And your purpose needs to come from your core values, your beliefs about a specific area of your life and health and goals. But you got to tie in your core values to that. Without the core values, there is not going to be a strong purpose behind it. And so defining your purpose, and that'll be week 2 or 3, send that in the email, helping you define your purpose behind that. Is going, when you revisit that over and over again, that is going to be what continues to allow you to move forward in making change. Yes?
What is the difference between core values and beliefs?
So beliefs are, the story we tell ourselves, and core values are the things that we hold, most sacred, and the reason that we do things, right? It's kind of the drive behind it. For instance, I'll go back and give an example here. It's a great question. I haven't decided how. Anybody else have an idea about that? How to describe the difference between beliefs and core values?
I'd say the core, like the foundation, is that's like the base.
Yeah.
And then your beliefs is building upon that, building on top of that. Like my core value is the same as my faith. And then from that faith, I can achieve my dreams. So, excellent.
I would say too that you have certain beliefs like feed a cold, stay with feed. That's like a belief that you have. It's kind of like something that you've been taught. Your core values is more exactly what you value inside, like with health. But like you have certain beliefs about health and fitness, but that isn't who you are in your core.
And a belief can be incorrect. So like, money's the root of all evil could be a belief that somebody has, whether that's correct or not, where your core value is.
I think core value is like one of those. I would, in most simplicity and most simplistically, I would say core values are more emotion-based, kind of the driving emotions behind our life, where the beliefs are more knowledge-based, things that we've learned and kind of conceptualize and try to put into thoughts, whereas the emotion or the values are the emotion behind that. I'm going to continue to think about that. And if I figure out something different, I'll come back.
Do you think core values change over time? I mean, I know your beliefs can, but
I think the definition of the core values changes and your identification of them. But I think I think most people are pretty steady Eddie with how they make decisions through their life. So the way they identify with those core values, or the way they identify and define them, can change. But I think it's very rare for somebody to start making decisions based on different values.
But I would also say that I agree and disagree that sometimes your core values are there. But sometimes I think they can shift over time. So like when I'm looking at it, it says like affection. If you're in a relationship for a long time and doesn't have affection, you will then crave that or want that. Or having a family, that could be something that I didn't want for a long time. All of a sudden I want it. Now I have one, maybe I don't want it anymore, you know? And so I think that things can come in and out of your lives as needs and wants and desires depending on what else is going on.
And that's a great point. I think that there is a difference between having values, but there are also core values, right? And so each one of these for me, I can see in every decision I make. You know, I like efficiency, and so I will travel a route that doesn't have stoplights in order to not stop and feel like I'm wasting time. It might take me an extra minute, which challenges that idea, right? But it's more simple for me that way, right? I'm not sitting at a stoplight wasting gas. So, you know, I literally put everything that I do through these beliefs and go, or through these core values and go, is that the way I should be doing it?
To kind of go off of what Katie was saying, what I was going to say was the first time that I did this a couple years ago, I had a certain set of core values, and one of them was having a family. And then I realized, okay, I have my family, and I kind of dug a little bit deeper into it as I kept looking at it. That was one that was glaringly like, is it having a family? And I changed it to quality relationships because I wanted a close-knit family. But then that also extends to other things instead of just having relationships and having a family, so you can combine them over time as you see them overlap.
That's a great point. And so, for instance, on my core value sheet, I circled religion, but religion wasn't important to me. And in fact, that word was kind of what itched at me, and I realized that faith was way more important. Outside of what a specific religion, it was my faith. And there was a definition, there was a religious definition of that faith, but the faith in and of itself was important, right? And if somebody chose money on there, right? Nobody cares about the paper bills, right? It's what that does for us, right? And so for some people that's security, for some people that's adventure, for some people that's freedom, right? So you can identify something, but if like Kayla dug down deeper, having the family was important. But everybody can have a family, but are the quality relationships there? All right. So strengths. This is something that I've added on, and it kind of dovetails pretty beautifully with purpose, and it's interesting because it's been one of the more impactful realizations in our relationship, Katie and my relationship, as we went through, and we went through a process called Strengths Finder, and the Gallup Association, the company that does all the polling, Gallup polls, did, I think it was about 40 years of research, and they researched all different people and all their different kind of inherent strengths. And they categorized them into 34 different strengths that you could or couldn't, exhibit. And then they created not only a couple of, textbooks, but also a test that you can take. It's one of the more interesting personality type tests that I ever took, because as you start, it asks very general questions that it asks everybody. But the way you answer it, it'll then start to specifically ask you questions based on those things. And of the probably 10 to 15 people that I know personally that have taken this test, they've all come back and go, holy cow, that described me to a T. And what I find important about that is because the more we know ourselves, right, the more we understand our beliefs, the more we understand how we can leverage our strengths and our values, the easier it is to move forward in life. Because I think a lot of our strife is just a lot of us don't know ourselves and don't know what motivates us and don't know what we believe. And so this is another one of those areas that allows you to dig deeper and really leverage your own time and strengths. And so the example that I love that anybody that's talking about Strengths Finder gives is the Nebraska School Study Experiment. So what they did is they went in and they wanted to implement this speed reading program. And so they had two groups of kids. One group of kids were grouped into what they considered having a strength in reading, and the other people just didn't have a strength. They weren't weak readers, they just didn't have a strength. And so their premise was, I wonder what happens when we teach this speed reading course. I wonder who's going to have the greater gain. The kids that already have a strength in reading, are they going to get the biggest benefit, or is it the kids who don't have a strength? Can we increase theirs and make them excellent? And so that was their question. So the kids that did not have a strength in reading improved from 90 words a minute to 150 words a minute. Okay, now that probably doesn't mean anything to you. It doesn't mean a whole lot to me. But the kids that had a strength in reading already read at 350 words a minute. So what do you think happened when they took the speed reading course? Did it stay the same? Did it get better? Exponentially better? Worse? Exponentially worse? What happened? Some say same or worse. Some say better. So the people that had, the kids that had a strength in reading went from 350 words a minute to 2,900. Right? So what this did for me, and what I hope it does for you, is to recognize that when you want to improve your life, working on your weaknesses can only get you so far. But working in your strengths can increase exponentially. Right? And so this has been really cool to hear how people have implemented this in their businesses and understanding their team's strengths and really leveraging that, because trying to be this really well-rounded person, you can really put a lot of energy into places that will only give you minimum gains. But when you really focus a lot of your effort on what is already a core strength, then things can grow exponentially. So you can go to GallupStrengthsCenter.com. So it's strengths plural, GallupStrengthsCenter.com. You can take the test. I think they recently, it's $20. They recently lowered the price. They used to only give you your top 5 because they really just wanted you to focus on the things that you were strong in, because guess what happens if they tell you, if they categorize all 34, you look at your top 5 and then what do? Most people go and look at their lowest 5, right? I wonder what my last one is, right? And they don't want you to do that, right? It's not about, I need to go build up these things. It really was about focusing just on these. Having all 34 was interesting, and discussing it with other people, especially with Katie. But really, top 5 is where I focus most. And so, if you know me, this couldn't be more accurate. I am analytical, deliberative, individualization, futuristic, and connectedness. And the cool thing is that there is also a what's it called, like a program or some resources you can use to look at what are called pairs. And it looks at when an analytical is paired with a deliberative in their top 5, the sentence that I read you is what came from that. So I read, so I got my pairs, and it said, all right, so the top 2 analytical deliberative says this, and it says, my tendency is to look for proof and evidence in all things. However, there are some things that simply must be accepted by faith. Right? I took this test about 6 years after I identified my core values and wrote my core value statements, and I modified it a little bit since I have been there. But when I read that first, I was like, holy cow, it couldn't have been more exactly who I am. So why would this be important? How could this help you? Well, depending on what your strengths are, you might start to make changes and make goals and start to develop a plan differently based on your strengths. For instance, I'm an analytical, so when it comes to making, let's say, a health and fitness plan, what am I going to do? I'm going to research. Say again?
Think it through.
Think it through. Create a plan, reverse engineer, all this stuff, right? I'm going to come up with the plan, and then I'm going to act, right? And for somebody that's an activator, meaning ready, fire, aim, right? That they act before anything else comes in, that drives them nuts. You may or may not understand that is the relationship I have with my wife, Katie. She is an activator, right? She was trying to decide something to do for her mom for her 60th birthday, and she goes, I'm thinking about this or that, or maybe a cruise. And I said, she said, but I think the cruise might be a great idea. I'm like, no, I think you should probably do a cruise. Guess what was booked the next day? A cruise, right? If it were me, what would I do? I'd map it out, figure out the right dates, I'd figure out the right boat, the right stops, I'd look at all that stuff. No, it was already booked, right? So again, one is not right and one is not wrong. Katie might tell you otherwise, but one is not right and one is not wrong. It's based on how you make decisions, and understanding these things. The more you know yourself, the more you're going to be able to develop an appropriate plan for yourself. Fair enough? Okay. All right. If anybody ends up taking the Strengths Finder and wants to share their feedback with me, what you've gleaned out of the process and how it's affected your life, I'd love to hear it. It reinforces my belief systems and lets me know that the things that I'm doing here are having a massive effect in the world, which is my value. All right. Lastly, action. Right? This is where most people start their resolutions. Right? Here we are, about 40 minutes into this thing, and we're just now talking about actions, right? So, again, I hope that I've put the appropriate emphasis on how important it is to know yourself, know what you believe, know what's important to you, know what your strengths are, and then develop a plan. And so, hopefully what I've done is started to create, again, just that thought process that you start to work in those other areas and you go back to them and you play along as you get emails from us throughout the rest of the month. But when it comes to actions, there's a lot of different things you can do. And so I'm going to give you some ideas, and if it resonates with you, hopefully there's some ideas that you can have to take back and start to put in your strategy as well. So what I encourage you first to do is to learn, right? Because if one of your health goals is to lose weight, right? And let's say that is in this vector, and the way to lose weight is in this vector, and everything you're doing is in this vector, you're never going to get there, no matter how excited you are and how enthusiastically you do it. If you want to see a lot of people enthusiastically going in the wrong direction, go to the gym this month, right? People doing crazy stuff on those machines, right? Never gonna achieve their health, but they're really enthusiastic. They're motivated by it, right? So, in order to get where you want to go, you got to align your beliefs with truth. You got to put some time in and understand what is going to get you there. You got to have the right resources. Where can I get resources? Well, there are books, of course. Or something that I just recently, in the last couple of years, have allowed myself, audiobooks. Right? It's funny. I used to claim that if somebody was listening to a book, they weren't actually reading the book. Right? The truth was important to me, and that distinction was something I used to have out there. And that belief didn't allow me the luxury and efficiency of listening to a book. Right? I can't tell you how many half-read books I have taking up space in an already small and cramped house. Right? Now that I've started listening to Audible, I've got a lot of books that I've read. I've developed myself a lot. It's great. I encourage you. So again, just part of my belief that was not helping me. Websites and blogs, sign up for newsletters that can send information to you. But again, if you sign up for a newsletter, you're likely going to have a ton of spam in your inbox and things sending. So what I encourage you to do is to set a filter in your email and send it to one place, and then set aside time dedicated to learning about these things, right? Because email's a trap, right? Right? Your phones are a trap, right? Every time you pick up, your phone to do something, or you open your email to send an email, you're bombarded with everybody else's stuff, right? And you get distracted. And so, to remove distractions, set aside time to do these things. Resources are great, blogs are great, newsletters are great, but they can absolutely take over everything, and you just go, oh, I can't do it anymore. I'm done with all of it. Okay? So I encourage you to have ways that you're increasing your knowledge base slowly but surely. Podcasts and podcatchers. This is, when I started talking about this 4 or 5 years ago, podcasts were relatively new. I think everybody here knows what a podcast is at this point. Is that correct? Good. Very good. So, all right. And then different events. Like I said, Lifebook has been an amazing event. It's now on a website called Mind Valley. It's a learning platform where you go through different modules. They release at different times. I was really excited that it was only $500, and here's the catch. Not only is it only $500 to do this event, which I guarantee, if you do it, you'll find much more value in than that. If you complete it in the time that they give you, which is 6 weeks, they will give you your $500 back. So if anybody is interested in that, I will email out, and the email that you get, there will be a link to do this. I screen captured this afternoon as I was making some modifications. There's like 2 days left to get in on that deal and do that. So if that's interesting to you, I'll send you an email. You can, or I'll send you a link. You can listen about what the program's about. Again, this is like, I would be patting myself on the back and giving me a big ego if I told you this was like 0.5% of what that event is, right? So. My goal is that I give you some principles that I learned there, but again, nothing replaces the real deal here, and I really love action. So then you got to make a plan, right? And so there's a lot of different ways to do this. Has anybody heard the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule? Right, that 80% of your success comes from 20% of your actions, right? So one thing you can do is you can list out everything that you could do to lose weight, right? I can start drinking 100 ounces of water a day. I can make sure that I'm walking the 10,000 steps. I can you write a whole list out. And then you go back through and you find, 5 things that you can do, and don't focus on the other ones. Only do the 5 things, because it's those 5 top action items that are either going to get you to your goal, or you'll do them so frequently they become a habit, and then you can go back and relook at your list and start doing the other things. You can reverse engineer. That's up my alley all day. But then I encourage you, create rhythms and prioritize your day. Right? How do most people go about their day? Right? They don't have a plan for it. They wake up by the most annoying sound in the world, called an alarm clock. Right? They hit snooze and they delay their day already 5 minutes. They've already broken a commitment they made to themselves, or somebody might have set their alarm for a half hour before because they like the feeling of falling asleep so much they're willing to get 30 minutes of poor sleep to just feel like falling asleep again. Anyway, I hope that rings through with some people. So I'm saying it's create a rhythm in your life. Prioritize your day. What does that mean? Well, you could get a weekly planner. Some people like pen and paper and like to have that and carry it around with them. Or you can do it via Google Calendars. I love Google Calendars. There's ways to create repetitive things on there. And one of the most kind of impactful things that I did when I first started this process was the time how long stuff took me, right? Because it was important for me to understand from the time the alarm clock went off to the time I got downstairs, how long did that take? Right? And from the time that I got downstairs and I made my coffee and I prepared my lunch for the day and I was out the door, how long did that take? Because what if I wasn't giving myself enough time? What if I did that every day and I was feeling rushed, right? And I wasn't feeling very efficient in that, right? So time out those things and make sure you're planning time for that. And in there, what you'll find is as you time these things and you prioritize the things that are important in your life, you'll find out not only that, one, this is probably a little arduous and you won't want to do it again, but two, you've got a lot more free time than you thought. Because when you list out all the things that are high priority items and you put them in place, you'll find out how many non-priority items take up the space that you just didn't plan for, right? Because if you don't take up space with high priority items, they will absolutely get taken up with low priority items, right? How many people accidentally missed a day of work? Oh crap, I totally forgot to go. It never happens, right? Just because it's important to you, right? That is important to you. How many people forgot to go to the gym? Maybe, oh crap, I meant to go to the gym. It's a Tuesday, I meant to go, right? We didn't prioritize it, right? We need to put the same emphasis and create the same structure and rhythm around those things, right? You'll see that we've got date night in there, we got Fine Wine Thursday, I've got these things planned, right? Fun events, sometimes spontaneous, but guess what? I plan it as well, because it's fun. Act, right? So that part sounds easy, but there are actions that you need to be making every day in order to make sure your actions are congruent. For instance, as you go through and you develop out your core values and your beliefs, you're then going to come up with a purpose, why that goal is important to you, right? And that's the story you tell yourself about, that future vision that you have. And the more you are in there, the more you're telling yourself that story and you're reviewing that, the more motivated you're going to be to do that. Right? Hopefully by the time you leave here, you've had that experience like you've had at other seminars or workshops or sermons where you felt motivated, right? Everybody's had that experience before where you felt motivated and you're ready to take life by the horns, right? Right? That is because something that you heard aligned with your values and beliefs enough to give you motivation, right? That motivation is based on your purpose and your why. And so if you write that down and you review it every day, or better yet, you journal about it, you are going to continually re-solidify that is part of your existence, that is who you are, that is core to you. And the more you do that, the more you're going to act in accordance with that, and the less likely you are to get off track. Affirmations and visualizations are really powerful. I think that's one of the more powerful things you can do because the more things that you think about, the more they're going to bring about, right? There is a part of your brain called the reticular activating system that is there to prove you right. Don't believe me? Go buy a car. And then after you buy the car, look at how many of those cars you find on the highway after that, right? Like, oh my God, there's a million of these cars out there. They weren't here before. They were, you just weren't looking for them, right? So the more you think about something, and the more you visualize something, the more you're going to find those things in your life. It didn't mean they weren't there and you created it out of thin air. It means that the more you're going to find those things in your life and find reason to find them. Start with small changes. Most of us are change averse because we've made big changes. We've tried really hard. It was really uncomfortable. We got negative results, and then we go back and go, well, that didn't work for me. Right? So try small changes. Do something a little bit. Look for the feedback. Find out how it worked. Right? And when you make a small change and you see improvements, you're going to have more motivation to make another change and another change. And so, it can be really intimidating to look at, 10 different categories and say, I'm going to make changes in all these. Try making changes in all, and then you fail pretty quickly, right? So start with just the 2 that you're working with, or if you just want to narrow it down to 1, great. Just make small changes within that. Or you can hire an expert. And sometimes when it comes to health goals, we learn that we're kind of on our own with those things, and we need to have support, and we need an expert there to guide us, right? if you know our new mission statement in the office, our new mission statement defines in it that we partner with local healthcare professionals that allow us and help us to not just diagnose and treat disease, but restore 100% function. Right? And so a big part of that not only is chiropractic, that chiropractic affects the nervous system and allows the body to heal and regulate itself better, but what I found was that even the best neurological care and getting the nervous system functioning at its best can't override some of the things that we've done negatively to it for a long time. So we partnered with a guy named Dr. Stephen Janopoulos, Dr. G, and he's somebody that we recommend to a lot of people that help to identify and correct some of the craziest stuff out there, autoimmune diseases, thyroid diseases, things that people are having a really tough time with, hormonal issues, right? Dr. D is excellent at those things. We have a couple other people we refer to as well. But again, sometimes we need an expert. Sometimes we can be working towards something, but we don't have the right resources. So again, it's our goal to partner with a lot of I think it's funny that we say local healthcare professionals because Dr. G is anything but local. He's based in Manhattan. But again, thanks to technology, we can make them local and you can have them there on your TV in your living room. And it's like having them right there. So, or you can hire us, right? We help people do a lot of different things. I find that a lot of people want to lose weight so that they have more energy and they can play with their kids. Well, most people don't know that subluxation robs you of energy, right? And so one of the most common things that we hear people say about care in our office is that they have better sleep, better energy, better moods and outlook on life, right? Those are things that most people don't associate with chiropractic care that we absolutely get. So, if you hear that those are your goals and neurological care is not part of your daily routine or weekly routine or monthly routine, maybe it needs to be. What we're doing today is anybody that believes they can benefit from an assessment, instead of your assessment being $49, which our offer is when we go out to the public because you guys came to us as well, that offer is no charge. So after we're done, if a checkup in our office is something you or you believe a family member might benefit from or a friend, see one of Kayla or Kelsey afterwards, and you can get signed up for that. Measure. You got to measure your goals, right? If you don't have a specific goal and a way to measure that, you never know if you're going to get there. Right? That's one of the things I love about Dr. G and his programs is that it's based on function, it's based on blood work and labs and physiology, and there's a way to see am I improving? Because when I started working with Dr. G, I didn't have a whole lot of things I needed to change about my life, but there were a couple. But it certainly wasn't the number on the scale. And if eating different and being disciplined in those areas, was all about the number on the scale, I would have zero motivation by it. But I wanted to see some of the change in how my body physiologically was working, and there's ways to measure that, right? And so that was what I needed to do. I need to have a specific target to be watching for, right? And like Ada said, we're not measuring, or if it's not a specific thing, it's going to be tougher to reach a target. And lastly, reinforce your belief systems, right? Nobody goes to church, right? Hears all the sermons and goes, read the Bible, I'm good. Right? We keep going back. Why? Because it reinforces our belief system. We hear different stories. And a lot of times, we hear different stories a different way. Or we hear the same stories a different way. And so what I encourage you to do is to continue to research, to continue to surround yourself with information and resources. These events. Over the course of the next 6 months, we're going to have online modules that you can go to and listen about nutrition and fitness and all those things, right? To immerse yourself in those things. And find an efficient way to do it, right? I love podcasts and I love Audible because in the 26 minutes that it takes me from the time that I wake up to the time that I walk out the side door, I can listen to 26 minutes of a podcast and learn new things, or a book and learn new things, right? So find ways to integrate those things together, make it simple in your life. But make sure that you're reinforcing those belief systems. And most importantly, when you learn that one of your beliefs was false or just wasn't true, don't beat yourself up about it, right? Allow the information that you get to, again, go back and reinforce your belief system. For instance, I had a practice member who, took a long time to start to come around to the idea that maybe grains aren't the best food source for them. And so stopped eating grains, finally after, a long time, and started to have much less pain in their hips and knees. In fact, they were able to walk up and down stairs without any pain. Thrilled by it, excited. Was excited to do that, and then had an event where they went out, and it was a birthday party, and I think it was a Cheesecake Factory or Spaghetti Factory, one of the factories out there. Ended up having pasta, came back the next day and was like, oh my gosh, my knees are so swollen, right? And they wanted to be really, kind of disappointed in themselves about the fact that they let themselves do that. And really what that should have done was reinforce the belief that, hey, that really is something that's not right for me. So when you get evidence that what you're doing isn't right or is not allowing you to get towards your goal, don't beat yourself up about it. Allow it to reinforce your belief, reinforce your purpose, reinforce your why. Yeah. Any questions for me? Yes?
Well, it's kind of a dumb question, but under ACT, it says you got journaling. I always try to journal, but then I just go to the blank page because I don't know what's right.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, well, this is stupid. I don't know, like, do you have examples or like, I journal? I know there's books out there and everything, but like, the journal, like, I mean, I could just ramble on pages,
Yep.
or is it like, is there, what is a good journaling method to like benefit your goals?
So to benefit your goals, I think you were right in saying, there's a ton of different ways out there. And for me, journaling is arduous because I'm analytical and I write down every event that happened that day, which can be a lot. And I'm never going, I go back to some of my high school and college days and read them, and it's kind of exciting. But I'm not going back and reading, nor is it important to most of things, right? So I love the question. What is the most important way to journal that's going to help feed your goals? I think that part of that is going to be in kind of reflecting and measuring, right? So a lot of times our goal is going to create, effects in our lives, right? And so to write about, how you're doing in that area and the effects that it's giving you, because pen to paper, it really does create the story more in your head, right? And the more you tell yourself the truth about your day and the truth about what you did and the truth about the effects, the more you're going to realize those things. You can also then write about what you wish you would have done, right? Or you can write in an affirming way and say, tomorrow I am going to, right? And so the more you do those things, the more you put what is an unformed thought into an emotional, core belief and a core action, the easier it's going to be to follow those things. Yes?
I have the problem with journaling that I want to write everything down too. And I got given a journal that it's like a 5-year journal. And it's a little different than this why thing, but I think the premise is the same. There's like 2 lines per day, and then it's for 5 years. So you get to go back to March 3rd every year for 5 years. But there's not enough space to ramble. So you have to be concise in 2 sentences. So I think the principle implies that if you're trying to do something about your why, maybe just limit yourself to 2 sentences. Just like, I'm going to do 2 sentences and not like 2 sentences being 3 paragraphs, but really 2 sentences.
Yeah, no romance.
Then it makes you really think and really process, okay, what 2 sentences are the most important to me right now? Because I have a problem with being very succinct.
And I'll just add, a confused mind is absolutely nothing. You have too many choices. So the best thing for you to do if you're interested in journaling is to just journal. So that could just be, I had a great day, or someone's out at me. Just even if you just pay attention and focus on the gratitude. Once you start focusing on the gratitude and things that's happening there, then it starts to help. This is pretty good. I'm not a journaler, but I can do gratitude all day. I just maybe write. Sometimes say I didn't like my day, but then I got this day. So there's days where I can't write anything.
Excellent. Anybody else have ways they think they've got it? The benefits in journaling wise? Yes?
My journals are more like prayers.
More like prayers, so
Yeah. Like that's how I get what's on my mind.
yeah. Like petitioning or gratitude or both or all? Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe?
I have like the opposite of Katie, where it's just ramble until you get to something that's meaningful. But I think it's more to the point is that there isn't just one way. There's a way that works for you. I think every person's different. I have one friend who talks about verbaling instead of journaling because she just talks it out with people. And if you, whatever the method is for you that helps you get to a different understanding or reflection on your core values or how you are on track or what's getting you off track, I think that's the way to go. So.
Which comes to the reason why you got the books, right? One of our values in Help Together is to give you guys ways to anchor back to an event that you had, right? To create this sense of community that ideally we start seeing a lot of the same faces at each of these events, and it continues to grow. And I didn't give you that book because I thought I was going to be so insightful that you were going to fill up that book with words today, right? So ideally you take this, and this is where you start to build out these core values and beliefs, and this is something that you work in so that there's a visual cue that takes you back to this, what hopefully was, for part of this, an emotional moment that you had an idea, that you had, you were inspired, that you had a new thought or a new belief that is going to propel you forward, that this is something that you continue to come back to that's palpable, that you can journal in, that you can ideate in, that you can write your affirmations in. But again, ideally that's something that you use in going forward as well. So I hope you enjoyed this. Excellent. Anything else? Thank you, guys. Yes.
I was just going to say that the truth for me is that you were precisely 3.5 pages insightful for me today.
3.5. I was 3.5 pages of insightful for her. Did anybody else, was I more insightful for anyone else? This is how I'm going to gauge my response as well. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for being here. I still appreciate you.